Hello everyone, my name is Lauren Yap, and for my persuasive speech, I will be talking about why children should be taught a second language at a younger age. So have you ever thought to yourself, oh, I wish I knew a second language, tried to learn a second language, and then realized it's actually quite difficult? Well, that's because when we are younger, there's a certain time frame for us to learn a new language. And when we pass that time frame, it can be quite difficult to do so. So introducing children to a second language during that time will be beneficial in the long run. I myself only speak one language, however, I am exposed to multiple languages in my daily life, whether I am shifting at the hospital or even talking to my family and relatives. There are languages that I don't know and I don't understand. So it is beneficial to know a second language, whether it be for the workplace or for family reasons, and learning a second language is best done when we are young. So you might wonder, do children need to know a second language? Aren't they okay with just English? And yes, knowing just English can get you by. However, it is important to remember that America is such a diverse nation. Over decades and decades, immigrants have come over, and with them they've brought their customs, their cultures, and their languages. Megan Rochelle from The Observer in 2018 recorded that as of 2016, Spanish was the second most used language in the United States. Dylan Lyons from Babel magazine in 2020 found that in a U.S. Census report, at least 350 languages were used in the United States. So while English is the most commonly used language, it doesn't mean it's the only language used, and it is also something to consider and realize that there are some people who don't speak English, and language is one of our main forms of communication, so knowing how to speak a second language might help you in the long run. Another thing to consider going off of that is being bilingual in the workplace. So like I said before, I am exposed to multiple languages. When I'm shifting at the hospital, there are some patients who only speak Spanish, and unfortunately I cannot help them because of that language barrier. So you'll never know when you have an interaction with a customer, a patient, a patron who might not speak English, and there is that language barrier that cannot be as easily overcome unless you knew the language. So Mehdi Lazar from Language Magazine in 2018 wrote that being bilingual helps develop more adaptability and social, emotional, and interpersonal skills. So while you can be okay with only speaking English, however, it does benefit to be bilingual in the workplace. Another thing to think about is knowing your family's native language. So if your family does have a native language, go ahead and learn it. There are having the ability to speak a second language at home while being able to learn English does benefit, and you can become bilingual that way. According to the U.S. National Library of Medicine in 2010, they wrote that the development of children's home language may associate with strengthening of family cohesion and intimacy, parental authority, and transmission of cultural norms, all of which can lead to the healthy adjustment and a strong identification and internalization of the social values of the family. So knowing your native language does bring you closer to your heritage and your family as well. So there are multiple ways to teach children a second language, and one of those is through school. There are debates about implementing second languages into the younger grades, so around preschool or kindergarten, and even incorporating them from K to 12. And that way, students have a longer time learning the language and are more likely to be bilingual by the time that they graduate high school. Megan Rochelle from the Observer again wrote that many countries such as Japan, Taiwan, and Mexico teach English as a second language to students. So being bilingual is not a foreign concept around the world. And there are children who grow up being bilingual, knowing their native language at home while also practicing English at school. So another way to do so is by enrolling your children into language courses, and that can be an extracurricular that they do, and that way they can be exposed if the family does not have a native language that isn't English. Another way to do so is encouraging the native language at home. So if you do speak a native language at your home that isn't English, go ahead and teach your child that language so that they know a second language other than English, but also they're able to connect to their heritage and their culture through that language and speak to their relatives who might not know English. Bilinguistics.com in 2018 quoted a study by Tengs and Fuligny in 2020, or that was conducted in 2000, and they concluded that adolescents who conversed with their parents in a different language felt more emotionally distant from them and were less likely to engage in discussion with them than youth who shared the same language with their parents. So while you might want to protect your child from not seeming or not following society, it is actually important to teach them that native language. And one way to introduce a language to children is through the media they consume. So sometimes if you do not have a native language other than English, there are other ways to do so. And one of those ways is going through the language classes as extracurriculars, and another way to do that is by the media. So there are TV shows out right now, like Dora the Explorer and Ni Hao Kai Lan, that introduce a second language to children at a level that they can understand. There are also other ways that children learn. One of them is through books. So here I have a children's French picture book, and you can see here that it is in a comic book or comic strip form, and you have conversations that children can read, and also just little stories that they can practice reading a second language in. So there are benefits to knowing a second language, and enriching the children now is an investment for their future. They can practice being bilingual as a child and be able to carry that on in their adult life, whether it be in their workplace or within their family, or even if they have a family of their own, they can pass down that language. Encourage teaching your children the family native language, if there is one. Or if there isn't one, go ahead and enroll them into a language class as an extracurricular, and that's something they can do and enrich their learning. Give them the opportunity to learn something new while they can do it, so why not a second language? Thank you.